there are many different paths, but there's not an infinite number of paths. There's really only three primary paths. You are either recruited, meaning somebody finds you and invites you in, and that happens either through, college campuses recruiting you because you studied a certain science or you studied a certain language. The military will recruit you in because they find you in some military place and you have a specific skill or a specific utility that the CIA needs at any given time. So you can be invited or recruited in. Then the second primary way is that you volunteer, you apply online, or you submit a job application at a job fair, because CIA is at job fairs. And then that application goes through a normal process of being reviewed and being determined. And then the third way is you actually try to do something that's adjacent to intelligence. And then during that parallel process, you're kind of directed or guided to go into the intelligence world. And that third process was how I was pulled into CIA. I was actually trying to go into the Peace Corps. I was trying to travel the world and help innocent starving children and teach microfinance in Africa. That's what I was trying to do. And that's just adjacent to stealing secrets and committing sabotage. So I was pulled into this incredible young life, which makes me a little bit nervous for when we start talking about my old life.
So when you were recruited, had you had any desire to do this, or was it like completely out of the blue? I actually thought of joining the Peace Corps when I was in college, and I was a science student, and they really needed scientists. So I actually learned a bit about it at the time. But were there things about you that you felt, oh, I actually would be suited to keep secrets and kill people? I don't know.
Yes, I love that. I've never had this question posed before. It's actually a really exciting question. I was one of those kids, like younger than 13 is what I'm talking about, kid. I was one of those kids that like wanted to be everything: astronaut, police officer, doctor, CIA spy, fireman, all of it, right? And I thought that the sky was the limit. I could do it all. Well, then I went into the military and I was categorically disqualified from being an Air Force intelligence officer. And it was because the Air Force didn't need intelligence officers. There was an attitude in 1999 that intelligence wasn't that important, that it was much more important to have pilots and much more important to have people who flew airplanes or did navigation. That was the predominant need until 9/11. And 9/11 happened when I was still in uniform, and it kind of changed the attitude about intelligence. So when CIA picked me out of the pool of what could have been a world healer with the Peace Corps, when 2007 came along and I was recruited, I had never even considered being part of CIA. I thought that if I couldn't do a military intelligence, for sure I couldn't do CIA intelligence. So I was more excited and giddy that like somebody was interested in me. It was kind of like dating, right? I was like, oh, somebody thinks I'm cute. And that's essentially what made me say yes to go the next step in the process.
So before we continue on this trajectory, was it a good thing that the government wanted to date you?
They were an abusive partner, but it did turn out well for me.
How long were you in the CIA in this capacity?
I served with the National Clandestine Service for 7 years, and then I left in 2014. And in 2014, I left service, but I still had a commitment to remain legally adherent to what the CIA said my cover job was. So it took another 2 years before I could actually be out.
And you and your wife were like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
My wife and I were both from CIA. We were both in the National Clandestine Service. That's correct. It's not nearly as cool as the movies make it out to be.
You're lying. It sounds really cool.
It had cool parts.
It had cool parts. It's like sexy.
Nothing is sexy after you have your first child. But everything before that was pretty cool.